Did I eat my other waffle? Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody's doing really good. It's August 1st and you already know what that means, and that is my July wrap up. So for the month of July, I'm gonna be totally honest, I was in a huge reading slump for the month of July, but a lot of the books that I read for the month of July were just smaller books, like 170, 180 pages, somewhere in there, because I was just not yeah, we weren't having it. So I was still able to read some really awesome books for the month of July, and I want to share them with everybody. I want to share them with you guys. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first set of books that I read, it was from this series, and it is the Nancy Drew 90-year anniversary box set. So my lovely boyfriend got this for me. He saw me eyeing it at Barnes & Noble because, if you don't know, I am a huge Nancy Drew fan. I read most of the original books when I was younger. I played all of the video games. I read the first books 1 through 5 in this series. It's a box set of 10. Yes, there's 10 books in this series. I just read the first 5 because I was like, okay, it's 10, that's plenty enough for me to split it off into the next month of August. So I have all 5 of the books that I read for the month of July, and the first one is Nancy Drew, Curse of the Arctic Star, where Nancy Drew and her friends Bess, George, and then Bess's boyfriend go on a cruise of the Arctic Star, and there are a bunch of little mishappenings going on. There are mannequins in the pool, there's deer antlers falling, there is spiders ending up in the buffet line, and Nancy and her friends are tasked by the boat manager to help figure out what's going on with the mystery. So that was the first book in the series. Yeah, anyways, so the second book in the series, it is Nancy Drew's Strangers on a Train. This one is a continuation of the first book, to where the cruise now goes onto a train. It's like I forgot whether they're going to Antarctica, and so they end up on a train where some more mysteries are going on, and there's a bigger revelation in this book about who is, like, basically what's going on from the cruise ship, and everything just kind of travels on onto the train. And this one ended with a big bang. So all of the books are different. So the first two, the first and then this one, they are a continuation of each other, but after that they all venture off into different books. But yeah, we'll get into that later. The third book that I read was Nancy Drew and the Midnight Rider. So this book, it has to do with Ned, one of Ned's best friends. She is an Olympic horse rider, and come to find out that the horse was given illegal drugs and nobody knows who did it. And then there's somebody going around sabotaging all of the other horses that are going on in the competition, and Nancy Drew wants to help Ned's friend figure out what's going on and why people are drugging specifically her horses. So this one was a really good read. It was not my favorite out of the whole series because I'm just super sensitive to animals. Like, no animals were like killed in this book, but it's still like somebody was making the animals sick. I was like, oh. But these are all middle grade books, so nothing really crazy happens. But this is the third book in the series that I read. So this book, it is Nancy Drew number 4, Once Upon a Thriller. So this book, it is with Nancy Drew and her friends Bess and George. They end up going to like this really cute town on a lake, and there is a famous author at the town, and Nancy Drew and her friends want to go to the signing of this author. But then some really weird things start happening, to where everything that happens, like a building gets burned down, a famous statue gets stolen, and then boats start sinking. But the crazy thing is that all of that, everything that's happening is based on the book that the author wrote. So Nancy Drew is trying to like talk to this author to figure out what happens. This one definitely was like one of my favorite ones, just because it has to do with the bookstore, and then, you know, bookstore rivalry in the small town. I don't know why, but like those kind of mysteries are one of my favorite mysteries, little bookstore rivalry. Anyways, this one, it is like the shorter of the series, so I finished this one in like less than an hour, I believe. But yes, Nancy Drew and Once Upon a Thriller was the 4th book that I read in the series. So the 5th and final book that I read from the first half of the series was Mystery at the Willow Woods. So this one, it has to do with Nancy and her friends Bess and George, and you already know all of her friends. They are going to support George's cousin, who is running for city council, and for city council, she wants to basically give her old high school where she played tennis, or was it volleyball? She played a sport at the old high school. She wants to give them a new football stadium, but a lot of people are opposed to this idea because everybody thinks like First of all, football is already really popular. They want more support for like the smaller communities. They don't really want the already popular football team to get a stadium. But the catch is that not only will they be getting a stadium, but they're going to be knocking down the very famous Willow Woods to where I think there were endangered species living in the woods, and it would misplace all of those animals. So as that is happening, George's cousin starts getting threatening letters. People are sending her dead squirrels, and she's getting like all of her events are getting sabotaged, and Nancy takes it upon herself to figure out what is going on with the sabotage of the city council. And she also wants to figure out a happy medium of how to make the town happy, and also how to keep the football stadium from completely demolishing the woods. Before I start rambling on, this one was my personal favorite out of the first 5. I still have 5 more to go, so we're gonna read that for the month of August. But yes, these are the first 5 books that I read for the month of July. The next book that I read was Fangs, and oh my gosh, Fangs was the absolute, oh my goodness, it was the most funniest book that I've read this month. So this book, it is about a vampire and a werewolf who have this really humorous relationship with each other, and basically the book is an entire love story with puns. And they're basically puns about werewolves and vampires. They're just making fun of each other throughout the whole book. It is so funny. Also, look at this cover. It feels like a first edition type book, to where it has that textured, where it has the linen binding. Oh, so pretty, so pretty. But and then on the back it says, "I want your love," and then it crossed out and it says blood. Loved it, loved it, loved it. The next book that I read for the month of July, it is Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. So this book, it is about a girl named Izumi, and she has her life, she has her mom, she has her friends, and she's just living her life. She's about to graduate high school, and she's getting ready to start her life. But then Izumi finds out that her mother kept a letter from potentially her father, and Izumi always wanted to know who her father was, but it was always a sore subject with her mother. So, not snooping at all, Izumi finds a letter to her mother from somebody who sounds like he would be her father. So of course Izumi is super curious, so her friends do look it up and come to find out that her father is actually the Crown Prince of Japan. So Izumi sees her chant. She's like, that is my father. I want to meet my father. She sends a letter to somebody who has a connection with her father, and he invites her to come and live with him in Japan and meet her, get to know her, study the culture, and really take her role in the line of succession for the Japanese throne, I believe. But what would be a good book without some rivalry? So as she gets there, she is seen as an outsider. Her bodyguard's kind of a jerk, but he's also really cute. She has 2 cousins who just, at any single chance they can get, they just are out to ruin Izumi's life and just make her like a living hell while she's there. And Izumi really just wants to separate herself from all of that just to get to know her father. But as Izumi is there, she's starting to realize that she could be way over her head. And she is fighting with herself on whether to just go home or to stay and embrace her culture. But I really liked it because this book was really all about Izumi finding her culture, learning the language, learning the traditions, and you start to see Izumi get a sense of identity. And I'm super excited at the fact that this book is going to be a series. Another book that I read for the month of July, it is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. So I think I talked about this book in my book haul. It's a shame I can't remember. So this book, it is about a boy named Jake Livingston who is a medium, and he can see ghosts, hear them, speak to them, all of that. And he is one of the only Black kids along with his brother, and he's really just trying to make it through high school and just stay in his lane. He's trying to stay in his lane the entire time. But some creepy things start happening where Jake's next door neighbor ends up being murdered, and the victim from the murder was actually a school shooting survivor from another school, I believe it was, to where a student named Sawyer, he killed some of his classmates, and then in the end he killed himself. And Jake is starting to suspect that the killings have to do with Sawyer, but then Sawyer makes himself known to Jake, and the two begin this battle of the body, basically. Now, I really like this book. I don't remember what I gave it on Goodreads. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, but I just thought this book, like, it was just so heartbreaking. It was great, but it was also really heartbreaking because you just see, without like I said, without spoiling the book, you just see how much Jake is going through on the side of him being the target of this crazy poltergeist ghost. He was able to find his voice in this book, and he was able to finally tell people what he felt, and he was able to release everything that he had been holding in. And I applauded him. I applauded him, because nobody should ever feel like they don't have a chance to speak and they cannot express themselves or basically be real and tell people what's going on. The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas is one of the books I read for July. So another book that I read for the month of July, it is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. So this book, it is about the youngest sister of the Brown sisters, Eve Brown, and Eve has a problem with commitment, and not so much as relationship commitment, but commitment to where she wants to go in life. She never really finishes a task. She'll start something, she'll be really good at it, and in the end she ends up quitting and just leaving it and not finishing it. So Eve's parents finally get frustrated with her after she shuts down her wedding business, after basically she had a little bit of a conniption fit with the bride. Eve takes down her page and just shuts everything down, and her parents find out and they're not too happy with her. So what happens is her parents financially cut Eve off. They tell her, you cannot have any of your inheritance, you cannot have your allowance unless you keep a job for 1 year. Eve's like, okay, no problem, fine, I'm gonna do this in 1 year and watch all of you eat your words. It was a lot about the romance, but it was more so about being comfortable with yourself and your body, and then just taking your time to figure out what it is that you like and you enjoy and making something out of it. So I really liked that message for the book, because there's a lot of people even now that struggle with finding something that they like, finding a career, and there's just no rush to do that. It's about focusing on what you love to do and then turning that into something for yourself, because not everybody is built to work in a corporate job, not everybody is built to be a worker bee, and that's totally fine. I really like this because it taught a really valuable lesson about that, about taking your time and focusing on you as an individual and not really paying attention to what anybody else says. So yes, To Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert is one of the books I read for July. Another book that I read for the month of July, it is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This book, it is about a girl named Carly Kirk. So Carly Kirk just lost her mother to cancer, and she gets an inheritance from her mother, and she decides to drop out of school to figure out what happened to her aunt. Her aunt went in to work her night shift, and nobody ever heard from her aunt again. So as Carly goes down there, she decides to take up a job at the hotel that her aunt worked at, and things get a little weird. She's noticing that there is this constant smell of cigarette smoke. There is this man in a bowler hat where she can never see his face. He keeps checking in and out of the hotel. He doesn't really say much. He just always rents out the exact same room. She's starting to see a woman and a boy, and Viv is getting freaked out. So the story goes through with Carly and Viv's perspective. It bounces back and forth between the two. It was crazy. It was crazy. I don't want to spoil the book or anything like that, but The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, that one is a mystery book for the ages. I am obsessed with this author. I went ahead and I got her book, her other book called Broken Girls. I'm reading that one right now, and so far I'm like, oh, okay, what's gonna happen? So The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James is one of the books I read for the month of July. So the next book that I read for the month of July, it is Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts. So we have our heroine from the original Aladdin story, Jasmine. It's just this princess locked up in this big castle, this big tower by her father, who's just this big mean man. I think in the original story too, where like if Jasmine does not get married, then Jafar kind of takes over and he gets everything. So Jasmine is like, no way, Jose, I don't want to get married, I just want my money. But Jafar makes her an offer. He tells her, you can walk, but you won't get anything, or you can stay with me and get your inheritance. So the battle of love ensues with these two, and it is some steamy stuff. Oh my goodness. I'm an adult, so I can read it. It's like whatever. Katie Roberts, I definitely plan on reading more books from her and all of her Disney smut series going on, but it's mostly for like smut factor and shock factor more than it is about like the general story. There are some little heartfelt moments in the book, but it was mostly for the smut. Like, let's just be real. I think I have the next book called Beast once, I think, yeah, with Beast. So if you are really looking for, like, I'm talking no censored, no black holes, some good old spicy schmishy stuff, then definitely pick up all of the books by Katie Roberts, because that is where you are going to get it. Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts is one of the books that I read for July. So another book that I read for the month of July, it is RHey Sager's Survive the Night. So this book, it is about a girl named Charlie, where she is a student at college and her best friend is murdered by a serial killer that is still on the loose, and Charlie is feeling responsible for her friend's death. You'll figure out why in the book, and she decides she just needs to get away. She wants to go home and be with her grandmother just to get away from the eyes. People are watching her. They're just like, So Charlie decides to advertise for a ride on, I guess it's a rideshare board, and this man named Josh comes up out of nowhere and offers her a ride, and he's kind of just like, oh, by the way, I work, so like I can't drive you anywhere until like 9 o'clock at night. And she's like, okay, that's fine. So Charlie gets in the car with Josh, and things aren't right. As Charlie is driving with Josh, he starts to talk about things that Charlie's kind of like, and Josh is hitting on, he's reaching level 1000 on the creepy charts, and Charlie is getting vibes that she could very well be sitting in the car with the man who killed her friend, and it's also a notorious serial killer that is still on the loose. So this book, let me explain myself. I gave this book a 2 out of 5. Without spoiling the book, I gave it a 2 out of 5 because nobody, and I mean nobody in their right mind, would do what homegirl did in the book. What I didn't like is that this girl was just like, she'd see something and it'd be like, oh, nobody else knows that but the killer and me and the police officer. And she's just like, no, it could be nothing. If somebody ever made a comment like the comment that the guy made in the book, I'd be like, I'll see you later. But instead she was like, I can't leave because I have to figure out what he meant. I don't care what you meant. I'm getting out. But you know, like, the book just wasn't for me. I love RHey Sager. I love his books. Home Before Dark is probably the oh no, was it Home Before either Home Before Dark or Lock Every Door. I think Lock Every Door would be my favorite. Home Before Dark is my second favorite. Lock Every Door, now that one was good. That one was good. RHey Sager's Survive the Night is one of the last books that I read for the month of July. So the last 2 books that I read for the month of July, it is Claimed and Claimed Harder by Anne Brown. So this book, it is about a young woman named Bridget Moore. She is a good girl. She's got her morals. She's going to school. She has her son. She's like, I am here to get my education and live my life with my son. But Bridget has a past. So Darren Lee, he's like this playboy of the town. He owns a club. He's just this hot and schmexy guy in the city, and he wants Bridget. Like, that is his property. He wants her back. Come to find out, Darren is the head of the mafia, and Bridget gets mixed up with Darren and the mafia and all of that good stuff. It's going to be hard to explain the book without spoiling it, but you do get Darren and Bridget before the relationship ended, and then after the relationship ended when he like tries to bring her back and everything. So there are trigger warnings for this book, so it has to do a lot with like controlling relationships, like BDSM, all of that stuff. If that is not something you're interested in, go ahead and steer clear of this book, because this book is basically, that's what it is. It's about domination, taking control of like a person, and what they do. Like, there's nothing really serious about this book. I just picked it up because I just thought it was going to be an interesting read with like that plot line, because I'm like, how is this author going to make this work? But she made it work, and she made it work for the both of them, because like their personalities clashed and that's just who they are as people, so it worked for them. Claimed by M. Brown is one of the series that I read for the month of July. I think that's it. I think that's it. No, I got one more. The last and final book that I read for the month of July, it is the final book in the series Tell Me by Anne Fraser. So this book continues on with the series with Detective Daniel and then Rennie Fisher. In the second book, it is a whole new investigation. So 4 hikers from this camp called Camp Kaleidoscope, they go on this hike and one of the hikers turns up dead. So Daniel calls on Rennie to help him navigate through the woods, because Rennie lives in the high desert. She knows all about the location. So she's like, all right, fine. So she goes with him to investigate the murders, and some stuff goes down. You find out more about Daniel and his situation, and then you also see Rennie come to terms with her life and what happened from the first book. I'm not spoiling anything, but Rennie does go through a lot. She goes through a lot. What I like about Rennie is that she's not a busybody, because there are some characters in books, like mystery books, where they're a busybody. They have to insert themselves in every situation that they find, and Rennie was not that type of person. There's the scene where Daniel has like not even a confrontation, where he meets like an old girlfriend that she just happens to be on the case. Rennie kind of notices the tension, and instead of just being like, oh well, who's that, and I wonder what the history is, she's like, I gotta make a phone call, I'm gonna go stand outside. And detective's like, no, like stay. She's like, no, I'm gonna go outside. I just admire that about her. She refuses to let anybody interrupt what she has going on. She'll help you, but she's like, at the end of the day, I'm gonna go do me, you figure out the rest. And I don't know, I just really like that about that character. Tell Me by Anne Fraser is the last book that I read for the month of July. Okay, you guys. That is it. That is all of the books that I read for the month of July. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the books that I read. For the month of August, I promise I'm going to read more. I feel a lot better mentally. I'm in a better place mentally, to where now I got a stack of books right here where I'm like, I'm going to read you. Like that, I'm gonna read you. Hello to my new subscribers. I am so happy that you guys are here. Channel is growing, and I'm so excited. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.